On May 20th, 1973, just 17 minutes past 3 p.m., the world of motorcycle racing would change forever. Riders, teams, and fans were getting ready for the 250 class to get underway in the 4th Grand Prix of the 73 season. The 350cc race just finished, and before the 250cc race can get started, one of the bikes lost oil riding with a strong oil smoke behind them during the final laps of the 350 race. Multiple riders in that race, including journalists, warned organizers to postpone the start and clean the track. Instead, they decided to start the 250 event as scheduled. One of the organizers said years later that it would be the biggest regret of his life.
He was a great champion.
Paikan otti siinä Suomen Teuvo Länsivuori, toisena Jarno Saarinen.
It took some years for Jarno to show that he really was the best rider in the world, maybe ever.
He was just a good guy. You know, he had a tremendous natural talent.
He brought a new standard, a high standard to motorcycle racing.
Jarno Saarinen mallissa voittajana, sitten Teuvo Länsivuori toisena, Kai Kuparinen kolmantena.
Jarno Saarinen was one of the greatest during this era, and perhaps one of the greatest ever. Born in Turku, Finland, he began working his way up the ranks by becoming a test rider at the age of 15. Whether he raced on pavement, concrete, or ice, it didn't matter. He was always a winner. He began his professional career in the late 1960s and quickly moved up the ranks. He was noted for his riding style, in which he kept his chest just above the motorcycle's fuel tank, and for the way he negotiated curves by shifting his body towards the inside of a turn while extending his knee out.
His style of racing was to quickly stick his leg out and use it like a flat, like on an airplane. You see, the leg works like a bit like a flat, a bit like a third wheel, and also helps you keep in balance. Was he the first one to do this? Yeah, Saarinen was the first one, I think.
Saarinen would have to wait until 1970 to compete in his first full season for the 250 championship, while also continuing to act as his own mechanic. To do this, he had to convince 3 bank managers to fund his racing career under the mistaken belief that they were financing his education. He did end up graduating from Turku Technical Institute later that year as an engineer, but he had to miss the final 3 rounds of that season's championship because of that. But even though it happened, he still ended up finishing 4th in points, scoring 2 podiums, and the following season he raced in both 2 and 350, finishing 3rd and 2nd in points along with 3 wins combined. Saarinen's success didn't go unnoticed, as Yamaha contacted him to ride their 2 and 350 motorcycles for the 72 season. His first season with a marquee team was a massive success. He won a combined 7 races amongst the 2 classes, finishing 2nd in 350 and bringing home the 250cc championship. 1973 was looking like it was going to be special because after the first 4 Grand Prix, he already had a combined 5 victories. 3 coming in the first 3 races of the 250 class, with the final 2 victories coming in his first 2 races racing 500cc's. Still under 30 years old, and Jarno Saarinen is looking like one of the all-time greats. So entering the nation's Grand Prix at Monza, he was expected to do what he usually does, but instead, motorsports would lose one of the greatest motorcycle racers ever.
His meteoric career ended at Monza on May 20th, 1973. He came from Finland, and like Villeneuve, he brought to the asphalt the driving techniques used in racing on ice. At Monza, he might have beaten Agostini again, but in the preceding race for the 250 class, he met his last curve. Many people had heard him say that he was afraid of the big curve. He fell soon after the start, along with Pasolini and Villa. 2 of them died. He, the Flying Finn, and Renzo Pasolini, perhaps the best loved of all Italian racers.
While approaching the first bend, Renzo Pasolini suddenly skidded on the left side. His speed was an estimated 130 plus miles per hour when he fell down, hit the stray bells, and crashed into the guardrail, killing him instantly. Upon the impact, his motorcycle lost the saddle and tank, dumping a large amount of fuel, which was immediately burning. The machine bounced in the air, striking Jarno Saarinen in the face in the middle of the track, causing a huge pileup. 12 riders were involved, several of them suffering considerable injuries. The reigning world champion was thrown into the air, landing on his back some 40 meters ahead. Even though this race turned into a complete horror show, it continued for several minutes. The leaders managed to avoid the debris and bodies of the fallen racers until the third lap. They kept threading their way through the chaos until they pulled into the pits and said, "That's enough." The race never restarted, and all of the remaining ones were cancelled. Renzo Pasolini was also a contender in 250cc's, working his way up the ranks in Italy, eventually turning professional in the early 1960s, winning 6 races along the way. The closest he came to winning a championship was in 1972, finishing second to none other than Jarno Saarinen, making this tragedy even more stranger. While the overwhelming conclusions for the reason of the crash came from oil on the track, some believed it to be a piston of Pasolini's machine using a water-cooled engine for the first time breaking. Other eyewitness reports were pretty controversial. Someone said Pasolini's wheels skidded due to an oil patch or an irregular junction of the asphalt. Other versions stated he lost control of his machine due to a sudden mechanical failure. Some riders and team members lost their love for racing after this, while those who continued did whatever they could to improve the safety aspect. Although safety didn't improve overnight, perhaps Monza was the start of the long road towards today's much safer circuits. Renzo Pasolini is still remembered as one of the most popular Italian riders ever. He was survived by his wife and 2 children. One of them unfortunately passed away on July 26, 2023, but is now reunited forever with their father. Jarno Saarinen is still considered one of the greatest riders of all time, despite his career being cut short before the age of 30. Even in death, he still has an active fan club. The same fan club promoted the opening of the Jarno Saarinen Park in Italy as well. In August of 2016, a bronze statue was unveiled in his hometown of Turku, Finland. He remains the only Finn to have won a motorcycle road racing world championship, winning 15 Grand Prix during his career. The riders he raced with that are still alive today will always continue to say until death that had he lived, he would have been the greatest of all time. Jarno Saarinen was 27 and Renzo Pasolini was 34. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.
It has been said that for a racer, it is a good way to leave the scene at the height of his glory, without the time to live on memories. But then, why did the racing world seem to die with them that day?